Hi, and welcome once again to Journeys from Lagos to Brooklyn. My name is Peter Gordon. I'm kind of here on my own. My other co hosts, Bob Adewumi and Donnatella, will join me in a few. A lot going on today, I guess. But we're here, and I'm glad that you're here with me. So, why don't you just send a hi if you're listening and let us know where you're viewing from. Once again, we are in Brooklyn, in the heart of what they consider trendy Brooklyn, right by the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges. And we're at Bub's Restaurant, Amarachi. And great food, great people, beautiful waitresses. I mean, dude. Anyway, so a lot going on this week. You know, we like to talk about things that have happened during the week. We like to get your input. We like to see what you want to talk about. Um, I'm going to start with, I guess, the event that's on everybody's mind, and that is the Democratic National Convention. I myself have not been watching. I got to be honest. I am a little turned off with politics these days. In the last couple of years, you know, I'm not a fan because I don't think that politics have really worked for us as a people, as a black people. And I don't think that we should continue to do the same thing and expect different results. I mean, that's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Yeah. But I do not try to discourage anyone from engaging in the process. I do not discourage anyone from exercising their right as an American citizen. It is your right. But then again, it's my right to stay out of it if I choose to. Now, I do get a lot of slack from that because people are under, well, yeah, people are under the impression that our ancestors fought and died for our right to vote. Now, I disagree with that, and please, tell me what your thoughts are. But I believe that our ancestors fought and died because they felt that the vote was going to allow us to gain the self-respect, gain economic advancement, and all of these good things that it did. The Italians, the Asians, and other groups that came here, and once they were able to access their right to vote, they used it to better them and their people. But thus far, it hasn't worked like that for the disenfranchised minority thus far. And so, we can talk about that. I mean, here we have a Democratic, our chosen candidate, Joe Biden, pick an woman of color. I'm going to say woman of color because she has not embraced her blackness as an African American woman. She has not included us in whenever she had positions of power. She really hasn't used it to elevate her people. In fact, she's done quite the opposite. Now, these are facts. These are things that you can Google. I am not against her. I would love to see a black woman in real power. However, I am afraid that this is just another political bamboozle that we are going to pay the price for, as we did in California, where she was the attorney general, and where she in San Francisco, where she was the DA. So, black people paid the price for that. She was extremely harsh. She used, and here we have my co-host coming to join us, sauntering in, strolling. It's He runs a thriving business, and I tell you, Bob, the restaurant business. I have a construction business, and that's difficult enough.
Yes.
But I tell you, restaurant business is tough, and in a place like New York where the competition is steep,
Yeah. Well,
and you know,
to be honest with you, the biggest challenge in the restaurant business is yourself, uh, your staff, your customers, the operations, dealing with your distributors, dealing with fluctuating prices. One week salmon is, $10 a pound. Another week it's $8 a pound
yeah,
or 15, and you still have to kind of maintain your pricing.
sure,
Same thing with steak. We absorbed the cost when steaks went up. So there's so much that goes into it. Um, and luckily we've been at it now for quite some time.
hmm,
So the more experience you get,
sure,
the easier it gets.
sure,
But at the end of the day, the powerhouse of your restaurant are your employees. The better people you have working
absolutely,
to execute your vision, the better productivity, the better service, the better the ambassadors they are for you
sure,
and for your business. And fortunately for me, I think at this very moment I have the very best crew I've ever had. And we're very fortunate to have them, and I love them
very
dearly.
nice.
But that's not to say I don't curse them out every day. Um,
Every other maybe,
every day, every minute, yell, scream, but because we have to demand excellence.
yeah,
A lot of people think that doing okay is enough.
right,
A lot of people, will give you an 80% effort and say, well, I did that. No,
right,
we're always looking to go
right,
100 or better.
right,
And that 1% that you don't know who that 1% is, you don't know who that 2%, you don't know that one person you dropped the ball on, you don't know who that person could be. And then when you calculate what each customer is worth over a 10-year period,
right,
the dollars are staggering. So
right.
you have to look at it in the context of that and saying,
And
listen,
I'm the type of customer that you really only have when it comes to I'm very picky about my food
yes,
and um, the energy around it.
yes,
And even if you're carrying, let's say a waitress is carrying my food to my table and she says a crossword to somebody else, I don't eat it.
I understand.
And I won't be back.
And I
So you have to,
absolutely,
when you have that customer there, you really have to do whatever you can to
absolutely, to
hang on.
retain them
Yeah.
and to be also cognizant of that you're being watched. You may be serving at one table, but the people across are watching everything
Absolutely.
you're doing. So you have to have a general awareness and just general good habits, because
Absolutely.
you can't fake it. You can only fake it for so long.
Correct.
What you're trying to hide will come out. So the better you are, the easier it is for people to see it. I had a customer today that I spoke to 2 days ago that called, and I wasn't around, but I still was able to take their call, and they was coming to celebrate their birthday yesterday. And they called back today just to let me know how incredible the server was. There's no greater compliment
Can't
for
buy
me.
that, bro.
You can't buy that.
Yeah.
For me to have a customer hunt down who the owner is to let them know that they had the best birthday they've ever had because our server made sure of it. And that's what we want.
Awesome.
That's what we want. So getting back to what we're talking about.
All right, so
Luckily I jumped in when you were beating up on my girl
yeah,
Pamela.
well, you got to come defend her.
We both HU bros.
Yeah.
We're both alumni.
She's an HU sister, but
and we have differing opinions. I think that for what we need done right now, right, we're looking at Republican, conservative white men running this country, and she's not afraid of them. In fact, they're afraid of her.
How do we know this? How do we?
Because I've watched her in the Senate.
Has she ever exhibited anything that gives us that inclination?
Yes, I've watched her in the Senate go after Brett Kavanaugh. I've watched her go after other people that they brought up for questioning, and I've watched the way she goes after them with her line of questioning and trying to ascertain her facts.
Okay.
And to put these people on the spot. So in that regard, I think she does an excellent job to prosecute these people. I think, a lot of people talk about her record in California, and I have a different opinion of that. See, I don't I don't celebrate violence. I don't celebrate crime. I don't like crime. Matter of fact, when my mother decided to leave this country in 1981, it was because she got robbed 3 times.
Oh wow.
You know, my mom is 5'1". She was 5'1", 5'2". You know, coming from the hospital, working, you know, to provide, food on the table for, and 3 different times she was robbed on her way walking from the
By her
train
people.
station by her people. To the point she said, you know what? I'm fed up. I'm going back to Nigeria. Why do I have to continue to deal with this, you know, in this country by people that look like me, you know? So when it comes to crime, people that view that as a way, an ends to a means, I have no respect for, because
No,
they
absolutely
damage
not.
lives.
Absolutely not.
And if her crime is that she prosecuted these people, or she didn't make it easy for them to come out, or I don't have a problem with that. You know, I don't have,
I
because
wouldn't either if it was just that, but I mean,
but
that's a little bit more.
So then that's why you're here, because you're here to educate me on the more. Because to my understanding, this is what they people talk about, the harsh penalties, the harsh reality. Listen, don't fucking steal.
Okay, yeah.
You know, don't fucking come to my neighborhood and rob me. Then you want to, turn into it's too, no, don't get involved with that
trust
shit.
me, I'm not defending
You know,
that.
so that's my position.
I
Like,
got you.
get the fuck out of here. I don't want to hear that shit.
Right.
That's what I'm not one of those guys. We shouldn't. No. Listen. I bust my ass 16 hours a day so I don't have to steal, so I don't have to rob, right? Everyone has that choice. Some people sleep all goddamn day, wake up and don't have no money, and decide they're gonna right now, as I'm coming in shopping, I was in the store. This guy walks in, surveys the place. We make eye contact. He looks to see who else is looking at him. He goes in the fridge and grabs a couple of nutriments and walks that way and walks right out. I told the cashier, I said, listen, this guy stole like 3 nutriments. Just charge me for it.
Did you really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because, but those guys,
honorable.
They're not, I don't want them around. I don't want them around.
I remember working at the club, and I used to bartend even at Tech. I mean, at Howard, I was flying back on the shuttle, the Eastern shuttle, to bartend on weekends. Because the money was good. I knew guys who would sit on their ass all week and go out and pull 2 robberies like on a Wednesday or Thursdays, just so they can pop bottles at
that Friday. That's just crazy.
That's crazy.
That's just crazy. And so to me, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I love my people.
Sure.
I believe in the upliftment and empowerment of our people, but I can't stand for lazy people.
No, I
can't stand for people that their actions are destructive to our movement. This is a small business owner that on that can of nutriment, he's probably making only 60 cents on the can. You're now taking that away from him. If he only bought 5 cans that day, he's just wasted his whole effort, because they just took all his profits.
All right. So what if I told you this, Bob? What if I told you that I do feel the same way about crime, but for every social ill that you can show me right now, right? Whether that be sagging your pants, because that's a social ill too, right? Whether it be drugs, alcohol, certain things, I can show you at least 3 pieces of legislation or policy that encourages that. Laws aren't just put into effect just because they already know the long-term effects of these laws.
True.
So while while we are some degenerate, the Black people are fucked up. Excuse me, I love my people, but we are a mess right now. Now, could we build ourselves up? And just like you and I we had the parents, but you see, we were the beneficiaries of several generations of people that had it together.
Absolutely.
right? Had it
Absolutely.
not been for your mom,
Well, sure, really. Well, yeah, just one.
one,
Most people,
one,
one generation,
most of us is one
dad and
generation.
mom.
And if mom
If
fucks
they did,
up and
yep,
she's on crack and she's out there wilding out, what, what chance do you have, really?
absolutely.
Okay, so I say this to say, yes, we do all these things, but there's a reason behind it.
And I totally understand because like you, I'm sure you have many friends that grew up in single parent households
Sure,
that grew up as crack babies.
sure,
And I know many people that have gone on to be successful despite those odds stacked against them. And I think our job is to help support anyone and everyone that's trying.
sure,
And I think in owning a business, I've done that to the best of my ability. I get calls every day for people looking for jobs, and I try to employ and give people opportunities
sure.
that others would never give them. You know,
But
so
I've learned as a business owner, if you go too far in that direction, you will get
absolutely,
hurt.
they will suck the life out of you.
Hmm.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, the support I can lend someone who has a disadvantage is being a business owner,
Right.
because I'm not going to look at them through the lens of a conservative white Republican male.
Correct. Correct.
I'm going to look at it as a brother that understands what they're going through, and I'm going to give you a shot. Everyone I hire, I tell you, I give you 1 week. I give
Right.
you a week.
Right.
I feel you. If I don't like you, you got to go.
Right.
If you don't like me, don't come back.
Right.
But I'll give you a shot,
Right.
you know? And I can go on with stories of, a brother that, I hired a couple of weeks ago where every time I step out, he's gone. So I had to say, I had two choices. I said, either I'm going to fire this guy tonight or I'm going to talk to him.
Right.
So when he came back, I said, listen, bro, nobody here is stupid,
Right.
okay? You do that shit again, you're out of here.
Right.
We don't play. This isn't McDonald's, okay? You're not getting over on nobody. Everybody here is busting their ass.
Right.
You don't get to take 5 minutes and disappear, or 15 minutes. We don't do that here.
Right.
Because you're only hurting the business.
Right.
So if that's what you want to do,
Right.
be gone.
And see, in my business, I have to address it that day, because if I don't, that means you're bleeding money for me. Because at the end of the day, I have to make a profit when I'm done with your job.
Absolutely.
So
And time is money,
and
because
time
they're
is
gonna
money.
they're gonna clock in and tell you they clock these hours that they weren't even working.
right. So,
And work that's supposed to be done isn't done.
right. So once I see certain behaviors, that equates to me doing this outside the window. So I have to address it the same day. So I get it. Getting back to Miss Harris, I do think that there were certain pitfalls and certain things set up. Now, she's no stranger to Joe Biden, right? It was his crime bill that she pushed. It was his crime bill that she made all of these. And let's face it, a DA, and she's not exclusive to her role.
Sure.
The DAs are dirty. Okay, they're dirty. I remember I was going through a case in court, and I would take the day off when I had to go back and forth, and my lawyer was intentionally dragging it out. So I got a chance to educate myself and sit in different courtrooms and just
See how it goes.
I learned that the DA, if there's a murder or something or some crime committed, a DA will find a person in the area, right? And let's say that person is addicted to a substance. The DA will pay a stipend until that trial comes to court. So basically, and we know when something happens in New York, it's usually a year, a whole 52 weeks
Absolutely.
before the trial date. The DA will pay that person
For
a
year.
weekly stipend
Wow.
for their testimony at the end of that year, essentially buying them crack,
Basically.
right? Because what is a crackhead going to do with that stipend, right? So anything to get that
Conviction.
that conviction. And so she is not exclusive in that role. That's what they do. And when they move on to higher office, what do they tout? How many people I convicted?
Yeah.
That's their stepping stone. And I just have a problem with that. Mass incarceration, I think I talked about this the last time, is slavery, right? It's
Absolutely,
directly connected to the free labor system that exists behind our penitentiary walls. And so when you do that, you're pretty much staffing that free labor labor force.
Yes. Well,
That's why I have a problem with
so
that. I'm sorry.
I know you have, and that's fine. But we also understand that. Listen, she's in the system, and she decided to be a politician, and because of her choices and the moves she's made, it's put her in a position where she can become a nominee for the vice president. And I think, quite frankly, her tough position on crime makes it that much more difficult for the conservatives and the Republicans to paint her as an anti-police or anti-crime or anti, you know, they don't know what to do with her. They don't know how to come at her because they can't use that again. They can't call her a softist, a lefty, or what. They can't do that on her.
Well, yeah.
So it makes it more challenging for them to beat her. And I don't really believe she's going to get into office and really start going to town with incarcerating black men.
I don't think so.
You know, I think this is something that it's in her past, is in the past, just like her dating that old man, you know. Some people have a problem with it.
I don't think so,
you know?
but
Some people do, some people don't. It's her past.
I have a problem with that, but that's gone, right?
You know what I'm saying? It's her past. And I think she's enjoying a wonderful moment. I love her brilliance. I love the fact that she embraces her heritage. I love the fact that
She embraces her Indian heritage.
She embraces her black heritage too. She always says she's a black woman. She always does.
Okay.
She says that.
I'm coming with receipts next week. I'm sorry.
she embraces her Howard culture. She embraces the fact that she's an AKA.
But let's not. I mean, okay,
listen. All these things count.
Okay.
You know, I count. And
you and I know at Howard, like
Yes.
Howard, if you are in a certain or whatever,
Yes.
if you've been grounded by certain parents, you can have a black experience,
Yes.
right? However, if you're on the other side of the fence, you can have a totally white experience. Understand what Howard is.
Sure.
Howard is the Harvard of
but
HBCUs.
the Divine Nine, I will say, at least from the AKA that I've seen at Howard, the Deltas I've seen at Howard's, the Zetas I've seen at Howard's, I think they are very pro-black, to be honest. I mean, just flat out. You know, I don't think their allegiance to the movement can be questioned. So,
Really?
and I believe she's the generation right before us.
Right.
You know, she's in your, and I
She
think
was there with she was there
when
with
you were
me,
there.
yeah.
Exactly. So I don't think that was any different. In fact, I looked at her pictures. She had the same jerry curls and long hoop earrings that every black woman had at that time. So you know, she fit in. You know, she you know.
Okay,
So
is she gonna resonate with the voters? Is she gonna resonate?
Absolutely.
Is she gonna resonate with white women? Is she gonna resonate with black women?
Joe Biden got that. That's what makes them such a powerful
That's
combination.
what they said, and then they went in that voting booth last year and voted.
No
for
one
Trump.
is vote. Let me tell you. First of all, Trump is a convicted. Well, let's say this: all of Trump's friends are convicted
Criminals.
felons. Okay, they cheat. I don't believe he won that election. Period. I don't think he beat Hillary.
Well, he
Period.
didn't. She got the popular vote.
No,
but
not even that. I don't. Period. Like they rigged it. It was rigged.
Oh, come on.
I think absolutely. I think these machines can be rigged. I think these things can be tampered with.
And if anything, the elite powers that be wanted Hillary in office, not Trump. I really don't think that. I really think that
Trump had Russia.
I don't believe that either.
Trump had Russia. Listen, America was much more easy to bring to his knees with a guy like Trump in office. And Putin knew that. And that's why he did it. He would have had a much harder time making our lives difficult with Hillary there.
No.
With Hillary there,
You have to
face him.
Okay, you have to understand Trump is not an insider. He's not a political
He's
insider.
not.
He's not a Washington bigwig.
He's not.
Um,
They wanted Jeb Bush, bro. I'm there with you.
Mhm.
I know what happened. They
Mhm.
wanted Jeb. This was supposed to be Jeb's turn.
Yeah.
But Trump pulled out that 9/11 card on him and said,
Right.
"Listen, don't you dare,
Right. Which
don't you dare."
didn't he have a
And
great point?
Jeb scurried back into his
Right?
hole.
He did.
Okay, he scurried
But
back.
did he have a point?
Of course, he
Yes.
had a point.
Yeah.
So we know that. But both of them are both evils. These are both.
Sure.
You know, Donald Trump is a different kind of evil.
Sure.
These guys, see, the Bushes are more sophisticated.
Sure.
You know, these are the guys that, when we talk a new world order, these are the guys that put these things
Correct.
in place,
Correct.
power behind the scenes. Trump is just a
Yeah.
New York businessman,
Contractor thug.
that he's a thug.
Mhm.
You know, he's a thug, and you know, his views are typical white male conservative views, white male Americans views. So he's not special,
Right.
you know. And the people that have
So,
his
so
views,
his racist attitude is typical in
it's
your opinion.
typical.
Okay.
It's that's what you get when you go in bumfuck New Jersey, you know, and you're trying to pump some gas,
Right.
you know, and you get people looking at you like you have three heads.
Right.
That's Trump. That's Trump people.
Right.
You know, so we know them, and that's what we got, and that's why I didn't watch Obama's speech, but that's what I loved about it, in that he called them out for it. Like, this dude is not even capable to be president. He doesn't have what it takes. He's not educated enough.
But isn't that an
He doesn't have the
indictment?
IQ
Isn't that an
to hold
indictment
this
on the
office.
system? Because to me, it's not Trump that's a problem. It's the system that allowed a person like Trump to become president.
Yes, because the system is broken. It's the same system that destroyed Bernie Sanders' whole campaign. It's
Right.
the same. It's corruptible, and that's what I'm saying. The whole system is corruptible.
So why do you still
now
have faith in it?
I don't have faith in it, but I'm gonna root. You know, it's just like sports. At the end of the day, that's what this is. You're gonna root for your favorite team, whether they win or not. If they don't win, then you might have to find another country.
Right.
You know, but I'm gonna root. I'm gonna hope that Biden, as much as I'm not thrilled about him as a, but I'm gonna. I think we have to, because you know, look at your life 4 years ago and look at it today. I'm not personally. I may have a $3 more in the bank account, but it's not about that. And I don't think we need to look at things about what's in your
money,
bank
right.
account. The quality of life, you know, for everyone. Does everyone have the opportunity? Is everyone getting a fair shake? You know, what kind of society are we living in?
But is
You know?
voting gonna? I mean, is voting gonna bring us that? Bob?
Yes, absolutely. You know why?
At what
Because
rate?
voting
At what rate?
got us Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, AOC. And these, even though we may not see it now, but let me tell you, that's the future of the Democratic Party. Is going progressive. It's going heavily progressive, and these people are voting about issues that we care about, that are important to us. They're a minority now, because for so long they were boxed out. But they broke through.
Okay.
And more and more and more, just like the sister in was this St. Louis that got, you know, elected. Like, more and more of these progressives are penetrating into Congress, and they're gonna flow up into the Senate. You know, so
At what rate?
you gotta try.
Yeah.
You know, we can't. What are we gonna do? Overthrow the system?
Well,
We
yeah,
can't at gunpoint. We can't do that.
Well, I mean, you can overthrow it in the sense that we should be leveraging our vote just like every other group, right? They don't just willy-nilly hand it over and then hope
I
that
agree with you.
hope that this candidate is going to work for us,
I
right?
agree with you.
We make certain demands and we leverage it against our vote and say, hey, man, listen, if we didn't, you know, we're going to vote.
You know what Sean Diddy is doing. But guess what? If Sean Diddy didn't take 4 years off, he had rocked the vote. That was a political movement, right? If he didn't take that 4 years off and go chase, what's his name's daughter, you know, and built that organization, built that group, kept us engaged, right? As a lobbying force.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think the DNC would have came to him to, you know, hey, listen, what do y'all need? We see y'all got 50 million followers, 50 million members,
Right.
but
Well,
we
what
have to
happens?
organize.
Okay.
In order for us to dictate anything, We have to organize and be serious about organization, not just in the short term, not just every 6 months, not just when an election cycle comes around. We have to do the work and stay organized and stay grounded in for a 4-year cycle, for these and be an organization like, I don't want to say Black Lives Matter because they're still relatively new, but we have to show that we're not going anywhere and that our constituents mean business. We're not doing that. So it's hard for pockets of excellence here to say, hey, listen, we're going to hold our vote until you. Who's we? Nobody's part of your group.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like you're just over there. I can go around you. And as long as they can continue to go around us, we sound stupid. So what we need to do is form an organization that has the kind of lobbying power that like the APAC or, where you have millions of people that will vote in block, in unison, not sit here and rip each other apart and discussing policy, but we'll vote one way and know that there's power in that group. Now we can talk to DNC and say, hey, listen, we got something to say. So if you don't vote for us, we're going to take our vote elsewhere.
Okay. All right. So we are talking about, we're here, journeys from Lagos to Brooklyn. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about the political wranglings of the day, specifically Kamala Harris and what's going on.
We're going to be joined shortly with our co-host, Donnatella C, and our special guest. So we're going to take a few seconds here to let them in. So the screen is going to go blank and, but stay with us. We'll be right back with our special guest and our co-host, Donnatella. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, because I was like, which camera am I supposed to be looking at?
Hello, and welcome back to the second hour of Journey from Lagos to Brooklyn. I'm your host, Donnatella, and I'm super excited because I've got the equally beautiful and brilliant Chef Male.
Hi, guys. Nice to meet you.
So I'm so happy to finally have you to myself just to find out all of the amazing things that you've done thus far.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me.
My
A
pleasure.
little bit about myself, guys. I started in culinary business about 11 years ago. I went to the French Culinary Institute, or what was then called FCI. Graduated in 2010.
Okay.
But little fun fact, I actually originally grew up in a family of restaurants. My grandparents all owned restaurants and stuff too. So I kind of grew up in the business, understanding it a little bit.
Okay.
But it didn't come later for me till much older. And then after I graduated from SEI, I was very fortunate to have really great mentors
Okay.
that kind of took me under their wing, and I ended up getting really great opportunities from that. Started in fine dining.
And is that all in the New York City area?
Yes, my career all started in NYC.
Okay.
I started in fine dining originally, worked my way up to hotels, casinos.
Oh, nice.
After that. So I ended up going big instead of smaller.
Mhm.
I did try to go smaller at some point, but I found that being that there are very like many different types of chefs.
Okay.
I'm the type that likes bigger operations,
Mhm.
because I like the structure. I like being able to experience more than one location. And there's always something new, and there's always a new challenge.
Right.
Than if you're working in just like one small restaurant and just doing one thing all the time. I learned a lot more compared to, I think, my peers by being able to do many different establishments.
Okay.
So it worked out really well, I think.
And do you have a specialty or something your heart reaches out most in your experience?
I have found my specialty because I like challenges and I like doing something different. I usually work mostly as like a consultant now, as a consulting chef. And I'll go in, I'll be hired by a certain owner or a company, and they'll be like, I have a brand new restaurant I want to do, or I have issues with some of my locations. Can you come in? Can you look at it? Help us change out menu, staffing changes, whatever it needs to be. So I'll usually be on a project for about 3 or 4 months at a time, sometimes 6. And I'll either be the fixer or the one that opens you from skeleton, completely
Mhm.
nothing,
And take you
build it
through.
up, and
Mhm.
then build your team, and then I'm out, and I'm like, hey, good luck now.
And do you find that difficult disembarking from a project? Because I imagine that you develop relationships and
Um,
camaraderie and
yeah, some projects were better than others. I'll say that much. Um, but for me, it was always just I appreciated the challenge because every single project was different. It was
Okay.
never always the same, and it was never always the same issues.
right.
So I usually, most of the time, felt pretty accomplished. Some of them, I was just like, I ended up leaving the project early because I was like, okay, I don't think the way I do things matches with how they do things.
So that's interesting that you have that ability, because a lot of consultants, I do consultancy in a different perspective, technology, and it's very difficult when you're thinking about what you're being paid, right, for a project
Yep.
versus the engagement and wanting to stay for longevity. And sometimes the way that you want to implement a specific procedure or how to move forward doesn't really go with the brand or the personality.
Yes. I ended up having that issue quite a few times, especially with the smaller business restaurants, or if they were just like brand new and opening from the get-go. I was dealing with a lot of people that this was their first venture.
Oh.
They weren't in the food and beverage business prior. You know, they saw other people doing it and then they wanted to do it too, but then they had no concept of what it meant to be in the restaurant business. And it's depending on what concept you had, because it's very different if you're looking to do fine dining or compared to just doing casual dining.
Right.
It's two different entities, so you have to approach it a different way, and then also budget appropriately different ways.
And I think that's the struggle for a lot of different entities, maybe even outside of food and beverage, that they say that the majority of small businesses fail within the first 1 or 2 years because they don't go into it with a business plan or a layout or a full understanding. And so I don't want to state the obvious, but you are a female chef, right? And so I'd like to hear, if you're comfortable, about some of the struggles you faced as a female in the kitchen.
One of the first things I was ever told when I decided to be a savory chef, which is pretty much in the kitchen, anything but pastry.
Okay.
You're on the savory side. One of the first things I was told by a director was, well, I'm going to be honest with you. They're like, you're not ugly looking, so you're going to have a problem in the kitchen. And I was
Really?
like, what? You know, I didn't really understand it entirely. She's like, listen, she's like, normally, you know, there's few females that go in the kitchen. They're very like tomboyish. They're very like kind of masculine, or they're very like boyish in some sense. They're like, they're not very feminine. They're not ladylike unless you're in pastry.
Oh,
or
I
if
get
you
it.
are ladylike, you're in the front of house because they use those looks to talk to customers and interact with customers.
Right.
So I didn't really understand that concept when I first like got into it. And I was like, oh, but whatever, and this and that. And then I started learning myself on how male dominated it was, and how there was still a lot of men in the kitchen that felt that we didn't belong
Right.
next to them on the hotline or in the savory line. And I was just like, why? I didn't understand that. Or if like one day I wanted to show up with makeup, there's like, oh, are you on a date? Like, what are you doing? It was just automatically like, oh, you're trying to impress a man? I'm like,
And that's interesting, because I'm sure if the male chef put on a tighter shirt, no one's going to talk to him about his pecs showing. Like our wonderful, my co-host who runs the kitchen in his restaurant, when he decides to come in with a nicer or a different top, I'm sure they're not harassing him in the kitchen. Although I am guilty sometimes of telling him how handsome he is. So I probably should watch that. You know, when I first mentioned struggles in the kitchen, I didn't think about the perspective of, you know, it being a woman versus a total male kitchen, or mostly male. But then there's also that attractiveness, right? Which I wanted to kind of lean. Did people ever tell you, based on your success, that they think maybe you're so successful because you are prettier, and try to take away from your accolades and your accomplishments.
Yeah, I get that a lot because, I like to be ladylike. I like to look very female. I like to have my makeup done, my hair done, or whatever. I would run into that problem because a lot of them will judge just based on looking at you, and they're just like, oh, are you really a chef? But it's like, no, you don't fit the molds of one,
Right.
So then, it was discouraging, but then it makes you work harder. But then at the same time, you would like to think that even though I worked really hard to get those positions, no matter what, some of these guys weren't going to believe it anyway, because then they would assume that like, oh, she's the only good looking female in like the place. She probably slept her way there.
Yeah.
And I would get that a lot.
Yeah.
And I was just like, actually, no, I wouldn't go within 10 feet of that like that, but we work together, so I have to. But like, I'm like, I never appreciated people that took shortcuts like that. And that was one of like my biggest promises to myself, that I would never sell myself like that at all. And that I would do it through talent and skills.
And given all of that, I'm sure that especially where we are in the world right now, there's lots of young girls, young women, older women, anybody who's thinking about going into your profession. And this is not to discount the importance of sharing the same information with our male population. I'll leave that for another show, which Bud can speak on. But if there are people who are looking at you now and listening and thinking about going into the industry that you're in, I would like to hear some of the things that you would like to tell them, or some of the things maybe you wish someone had told you when you were, studying.
One of the things I think right off the bat, I would say, it's not all what you see on TV. You have to understand that, as like a lot of these chefs on TV, they've already been through the grind.
Right.
But you still have to start from the bottom. The food and beverage industry is still very old school. You start from the bottom. You start as a prep cook or a line cook, and you really have to work your ass off, working very long hours, very little pay, especially back then. I mean, I did 6 months of no pay at first.
Really?
And then I only got my first job was at $9 an hour.
And the 6 months was at an internship?
Yes, you have to. They prefer people to do internships. So I did 3-month internships at 2 other top restaurants before I ended up at my first line cook position.
Okay. And for me, I'm not in food and beverage. When you're talking about line cook versus, when you say working up, I was like, does that mean you have to start in the lobby before you can get to the kitchen?
So prep cooks, when you're talking about, like, I guess you could say the levels of the kitchen, it's usually dish / prep cooks, and then it's line cooks. Those are the people who are in your main line cooking.
Okay.
And then from there, sometimes you might have what we call a chef de tournant or a roundsman.
Okay.
Because they're like slightly higher than line cook, but they're not quite at chef yet because they're still hourly employees.
Okay.
And then after that, that's when you first hit sous chef. And that's your first salaried position. And that's when you first get a chef title.
I didn't know that. And I'm that's the one term that I'm familiar with. Sous chef and chef. Those are only two
Once
that
that's the first, I guess, coming up that you would actually be able to hold a chef title originally.
And so for some young lady or young man who's looking at you now, what would you advise them that they need to consider before actually taking the jump to pursue it?
It's a lot of hard work. It is very long hours. You have to give up your nights, holidays, weekends to work this business, especially in this pandemic now, to be honest. It's a lot harder. You are probably not going to get paid as well as probably pre-pandemic. There's been a lot of changes, obviously. A lot of people are hurting right now with the business-wise. It is not for the faint of heart, can I say. Like, you really have to have a passion for this business. Even though there's so many outlets in food and beverage that you can go, I would say right now is not the best time to actually come into the food and beverage business if you're starting to start out from scratch. Because I believe if you're going to go the chef route, it's all about hands-on experience.
Oh, and because
it's
of the
really
pandemic,
hands-on.
it's hard to
and
get
you can't
in the
really do
kitchen
that
now.
right now. It's very, very hard. People are a lot of owners will deal with very experienced cooks and chefs, and because they can work multiple areas of the kitchen,
Right.
and they're more worth the money than somebody who can only do one thing.
Right.
So they'll go with someone that's very versatile.
And I would imagine during the pandemic now, across all industries, you have so many qualified, experienced people due to the recent unemployment and things of that nature. I just want to go back and talk a little bit more in detail about your background. So you said you have 10 plus years in the industry, and have you worked abroad at all? Because I know a lot of people, when you're looking at the shows now that are internet based, you can't tell where anyone's been or where they are at the moment unless they tell you. So have you worked overseas?
Mostly all my work, especially up until the last 2 years, was pretty much all in the US. I did jump around a lot depending on where my company sent me or depending on where my project was, because once you hit corporate level, they usually have multiple locations. So then they just kind of send you where you're supposed to go. You're like 1 minute here, and then next minute, oh wait, you're flying this way, and you're like, oh great, cool. But the only time that I actually started to be able to do work for myself was when I kind of stepped back from that normal corporate life and being just tied down to one company, and I started doing more consulting for myself. So been able to do a lot of traveling the last 2 years, and to be able to, I'm actually expanding more into Asia now. So I was making a lot of trips back. Guys, I'm okay. I've been tested. Like, we're all good.
She is. I've been a friend and a follower her on Instagram for forever. So that's good. And we have to let people know that, because that's a whole nother topic.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
That I'm sure you face. So internationally, you've done mostly in Asia, you said?
Well, mostly in the US, and then I expanded into Asia the past 2 years.
Okay. Are there any places that you haven't been in a working position that you really want to go, like a bucket list travel destination?
Singapore.
Really? And so I visited Singapore as a corporate person in 2012. And I did not know that they were one of the few places that has like perfect weather. They've never ever had a natural disaster. I found that it was very beautiful. The food was
incredible.
Scrumptious.
I've heard so much about the food. That's why I'm like, and a lot of my chef friends that are very well known, that seems to be on everybody's top 3 was Singapore.
So and I think it's the quality of life as well.
I was very upset that I was trying to fit into my schedule pre-pandemic, and then everything, I'm like, I had to cancel all my trips, because I was actually should have been in South Korea right now.
Okay.
But I'm really hoping to put that on my list coming up and make time for it, hopefully, once things get better.
Yes, and I'll make sure we stay in contact. So when you go to Singapore, that's a trip that, you know, it's journeys from Lagos to Brooklyn, and we're going to take some side trips to some other countries.
Yes.
I know that you don't have a mic, Bub, but you have so much. I wish I could take this off, but you have so much experience in the industry. I want to know, what would you like to ask or comment? Because I was watching you nod and acknowledging some of the things that Chef Mala was saying.
Can you hear me? You can hear me? You can hear me? A little bit. No, I was fascinated with when you were talking about how having looks in the kitchen as a woman, how you're perceived and the perception, and how men can be, and I really see that, to be honest with you. In my kitchens, I predominantly have a female staff, because one of the issues with men, we are still very chauvinistic.
Yep.
And you know, you may have a more experienced chef that's a woman, but the man will automatically want to assume control of the whole kitchen. And a lot of times that causes problems, especially if he's not as good as the woman. So you know, women still have issues in the kitchen with inequality. You know, it's and the kitchen is one of those areas where this conversation never really penetrates into. So a lot of kitchens kind of that's just the status quo. The guy comes in and kind of asserts himself as the leader, and many chefs are attitudinal,
Yes.
cocky,
Ugh.
you can't tell them nothing. They don't want to work with you.
Mhm.
You know, they want to do their stuff separate. If you don't want to make them the leader, then they want to do everything on an island by themselves.
Yep.
Really.
You know,
And that
so
makes
Yeah.
it difficult
makes it
for
extremely
the synergy in the
cohesive.
kitchen,
Yes.
right?
It's
And then,
very
and then
difficult.
even when you talk of consistency, so
Yes.
that's another thing. If you know, if a female chef comes up with a certain way to do something,
Mhm.
the men will give resistance. You know,
Yep.
they won't want to. So then you have a problem with consistency because the guy's going to want to come in and do it his own way,
Yeah.
as opposed to the way that was brought down. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel you in that,
Oh.
and you know,
Thank you.
and all we can do as owners is recognize when we have that issue in the kitchen and try to address it. You know,
Yeah.
and either educate these men about, because a lot of times sometimes they don't even know that they're being sexist or chauvinistic.
Mm.
So first educate them, and then if it's not working, at some point you're gonna have to cut them loose, and maybe
Yeah.
they will learn then that, you know, you can't continue this line of behavior. You know, women are in every demographic. They're here to stay. You know,
Yeah.
women are penetrating every market, every profession, and there's nothing we can do about it to keep them back. So you might as well get with the program. You know.
Get
Yeah.
used to it.
I wish that was. I wish there were a lot more owners like you that were willing to do that, because I've been in situations where, you know, it did get to the point that it was like, it ended up that really bad confrontation where it's just
Yeah.
like me or them or this and that. I'm like, this is not how it has to be, you know? But they just, a lot of them just refuse to acknowledge me. They're like, I've never had a female chef. And I'm like, what difference is it between me? Just because, no, I'm just like, it doesn't mean that I have less talent or anything like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you know, men can be very, very intimidating, and obviously you don't want to. The kitchen is not where you want a confrontation when you have.
Yeah, you have knives. Yeah,
Like,
like, yeah, it's a very, you're like, okay, step away from your cutting board. Please don't do that. Put it all down, okay? Let's take it outside. Like,
It's interesting.
definitely, it's an issue, and you know, we just have to continue to address it.
well, thank you for
do
standing
better.
up for us. I
Absolutely,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll speak for the ones that are still in my business that I'm like, oh, we're like, when is things gonna change? They're like, oh, well, then it ends up to that point. We're like, well, you know what? We'll just have to open our own place, or just like, you know, do our own thing. I mean, for me, it's just like I decided not. I wanted to step away from the normal kitchen operations unless it was my own place, which I'd like to do in the future.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm more the type now. It's just like I really want to expand and, you know, teach people more about the food and beverage industry and about different cultures and foods and stuff like that. So that's really the direction I'm going now, you know. But I really hope that for anyone in the future, that people like you will be more understanding, you know,
Absolutely.
of people in the kitchen, no matter
And
what
you
it
know
race or female or male. It doesn't matter.
And forums like this that talk about these issues are important too, because
Absolutely.
a lot of places just won't talk about it. It's
Yeah, they
not a
don't want to.
conversation have.
And
Yeah,
I think
you're right.
there's also a difference with Bub. I think you have a lot of owners that don't actually do the work,
Yeah.
right? So they're not in the kitchen, so they don't see it.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't care to see it. And I think that's where the empathy comes from Bub, because there are a lot of days he's in the kitchen sweating it out with the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's just hard to be an owner of a business and
Mhm.
you not know every facet of your business. You know, you have to
Yeah.
be able to walk in the kitchen and see, okay, how can we be better? And
Yeah.
I think, you know, that's why I go in the kitchen sometimes to get the pulse, to see what we're doing, how we're doing it.
Mhm.
Is there a better way to improve that or improve the process? And sometimes you walk in to see if anything has changed,
Yes.
you know, from
Mhm.
the way it used to be and the way, you know, so it's very important for anyone that's in the restaurant business to be able to step in the kitchen, you know,
Yeah.
and not embarrass themselves. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely harder to do though, because I think for for chefs that are very much branded, you know, branded chefs, they people don't understand also, especially when you're talking about TV chefs nowadays, they think that a lot of these guys are in the kitchens, and I'm just like, no, because the thing is, they attach their name to something out of a contract or whatever, but I'm like,
Right.
they're not actually in the kitchens because there's so many locations now, it's almost impossible, and they actually have to focus on the actual overall operations because they've gotten so branded and they have so many locations now. So it unfortunately being branded that to that extent, it pulls you away a lot from the actual experience of when you first started. You know, so I know as me, it's just like there's a lot of us that I know that like I wish we could just be cooks, like, and just love what we do and just cook what we want, you know, every day and enjoy that and bring that to people. But also, you really, it's very hard to, you're, it's very hard, number one, to make a living off of just that. It's very, very hard. And for you to be able to get to whatever your goal is, you have to be pushed into chef positions, salary positions, and move your way up. And also deal with the politics and sometimes BS that goes with it.
What is your favorite dish? What's your
Oh.
go-to?
That is a
You know,
good
That is one of
question.
the hardest questions to ever ask me. Like,
And are you talking about to
She
prepare?
just called you and you're hosting a private dinner.
oh.
What are you throwing down for Joe Biden?
Ooh.
Unfortunately I don't know his food preferences, but anything that's my favorite are actual custom recipes that I've developed myself.
Excellent.
Because also I've never given these recipes to any of my former employers, and I would occasionally like make a special out of one of my recipes to kind of test the waters and see. It was like, oh, to see if I still got it,
Right,
you know,
right, to wow them.
and I've never had a problem so far. So I've tried and tested all my custom recipes that I've done, and I'm just like, so I think it would probably be one of those. But that also means that from beginning, I'm not going to tell anybody else what I did with it.
But that's key to your exclusivity.
Is it gonna be chicken? You know, don't give us the details, but what is it gonna
It's definitely
be?
meat.
Okay.
I would say, well, I have a few favorites, but one of my favorites is actually short rib.
Oh,
I'm
short
a short
rib
rib
is
girl.
Oh,
Short
I
rib
love
and then
short
like
ribs.
braised pork belly. Like it's just like I have a few different ways of doing it, but so far it's been like, yo, it's okay. I'll get fat. I'm good. Let's go. Let's go. And I was just like, I'll eat the whole thing. Like it's all good. So I would definitely say like those my custom recipes would be my favorite. Absolutely, just like right off the bat.
Awesome. I'm still on the short rib part because everybody knows I love to eat.
Yeah,
I'm
but you're
trying
still
to
like really thin. You know, like the rest of us, it just bam, like right there.
I tried. And actually, I was so excited that I went up to 153 pounds during the pandemic. And I'm like, finally, I don't look like a stick figure. And I went to the doctor yesterday and got weighed, and I weigh 137 again.
You know,
and I'm like, how does that happen?
Not fair.
You know, let's get off the weight topic, man. Because I eat and it goes straight, bam, like right there. I'm like, great. I gotta run like 10 miles now. Awesome.
Okay, so I'm I have to tell people we're talking and everything. I have actually been acquainted with you for quite some time.
Yes.
And the reason why it was important to me that the first guest that I invited to our show, because we're new at this is only our third episode. I think we're doing really good. What do you guys think? But the reason why I gravitated to you so much, and I think it's prevalent in our time now, one of the current themes that's going on is women supporting women.
Yes.
And so several years ago, I don't even remember how we came in contact. I think it was just merely on Instagram.
Yeah, you reached out to me. You started following me, I think, after the Food Network thing. And then you started like commenting on my posts and this and that and whatever. And then you ended up DMing me. And I actually invited her to one of the big openings that I did.
I was so excited.
In downtown. And I was just like, well, if you're in the area, like, you know, come visit me. I'm working like 17 hours a day. So I'm here.
Yeah.
So,
And I, what I like about you, you're super humble. So you saw how she just slid that, I think it was after the Food Network when you saw me. And I'm working downtown. She didn't want to mention it was one of the trade centers. And she sat me by the window. And I was so impressed by you. You know, it's kind of like a daze. There was so much food. I felt like my own little celebrity. And she was like, oh, my hungry world, I'm so happy to have you. And I was like, what? And it's it's one of the things for me. I've had so much chaoticness in my life that food and experience and quality of life is huge for me. So I was so humble. I have to share you guys. I cried when
Yeah.
when
Yeah, she cried at the table and I freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, why did she cry? I'm like, what did I do? I just gave you a whole bunch of food. I thought you'd be happy. You have a view of like Ground Zero and like the Trade
Yeah.
Center. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
It literally was amazing. And I think one of the things that I've tried to do, and I think people should do, especially given the pandemic and how much is going on, is surrounding yourself with good people
Yes.
who champion whatever it is you dream, your desire. And it's one of the reasons why I'm on this show. So for people who are just joining us, we are actually sitting live in the middle of a Nigerian restaurant. So the noises that you're hearing, it's not us not being in a soundproof place. That is, we're talking about
Yeah.
the kitchen. That is the chef and the line cooks, and you hear the wonderful men and women who are running back and forth serving the customers. And I just have to thank you again from the bottom of my heart that people don't know how just a simple act of kindness affects other people. And it has impacted me. And I can't remember how many years ago was that?
That was when I opened in 4 World Trade. It was still a newly open building. It was 2016.
Yeah.
2016. So it's been a minute since I've known you.
And again, those relationships, and people tell you I do not meet strangers on social media.
Yeah,
So
it's
don't
not
everybody
like
jump
that.
in my
Okay, it's not
DM.
like that.
We're not doing that. Right now, my Snapchat is out of control. But it's also about vibes. And even
Yes.
now, I think you still have a lot of positivity. So I think people would like to know, what are you going to be doing going forward? Things that you can share that's not going to break the brand.
Yeah.
Where can they find you? I think we've been posting your social media. But how can we see more of you, or where can we see more of you?
I am working on some new stuff now. Like I said, I'm still consulting right now, but I also have other skill sets. So that's like kind of like my day job. And then I switch over to my culinary stuff because hopefully once it's safer to travel again, I will be traveling back to Asia and hopefully expanding there because I'm going more into the TV entertainment side. So hopefully you'll be able to see me more on that end. And
I'm sorry, what country specifically?
Philippines and South Korea.
Okay, good question.
Yes.
Describe what the Philippines is like and describe what South Korea is like.
Okay,
My kids
Philippines.
love everything that comes out of South Korea.
So, okay.
The music, the food, we have to go to the city to eat the food.
Oh, so you go into K-Town?
Netflix, watch
Good.
all the movies.
Oh, you watch K-dramas. What?
Everything
Yeah.
is taken. I'm about to buy a Hyundai.
Oh, by the way, okay, since you're talking about Hyundai, let me tell you, they have these Hyundai K9s in South Korea that are the Uber Blacks over there. They're like
They're like
Benzes on the inside. They are so nice.
That's what I'm saying.
They're so nice. And like the guy came and he was in a full suit, opens the door for you. I was like, yo, what? We can't get this in America? Like, what is this?
Don't
You
let
know?
the secret out. That is
like,
our new
so-
pivot.
Kids love South Korean culture. I don't know what it is, but really, they can't hear it, but they hear what
They want subtitles.
and-
Got it.
You said that recently.
Yeah, there's still, I mean, there's a lot of things. Yeah. There's a lot of things to love about South Korea. Like, number one, their hygiene. Like, first of all, guys, there's a reason why when they jumped on the pandemic, they were able to squash it quick.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that, like, their metro, so clean. So clean. They're constantly have women cleaning everywhere. There's, they don't spit on the street and put their gum on the street or anything. They really care about your hygiene, your looks. I mean, sometimes it can be a little much, with Korean beauty ish, trends and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm like, all right.
I read something. Is it true that Japan colonized Korea at one point?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
That's why there's still actually quite a bit of animosity between Japan and South Korea. And actually in Japan, there's a lot more discrimination towards South Koreans.
Really?
A lot more, which you would think would be kind of the opposite way around, considering they had tried to conquer South Korea.
Yeah.
So I could kind of feel it, you know, the issue.
Do you know about how many, like, for how long a period they
I don't remember exactly how long, but as you know, it had a great impact with the Korean War and stuff, which actually a lot of South Koreans don't know that Philippines had actually sent some of their own troops to fight with the South Koreans against the Japanese. So, and actually helped them win quite a few battles. So,
and the Philippines primarily is a Spanish and Asian type of use, like,
yes,
because I see a lot of like Spanish names.
yes, very much so. So Filipinos generally are actually a mixed race. A true, I guess, Filipino lineage would actually come from like Malaysia or Indonesia.
Really?
Or like Thailand. Those are really the majority three. And then when they came to the Philippine Islands, they mixed in with other nationalities. Okay. So Filipinos just right off the bat were already mixed. So, but then of course when we got colonized from like the Spaniards, and then of course U.S. came in and stuff like that, you know, we mixed in even further. So, in general, you know, I would say just because we're so mixed, you know, we are very Americanized when you go to the Philippines. Like, the last time I was there, which I'm hoping to go back soon, you'll see like American movies premiering there first before it even premieres in the U.S. And I was like, oh wow! And then also our culture in school, you're like mandatory to learn English and have for the textbooks.
Like
yes, it's like the second. It's practically the second language. It's almost the first language. Yeah, but I mean there are different dialects to Filipino, but the main is Tagalog. But
is it like a mix of?
It's a mix of like Spanish and English because you read it out like romanization. If you're actually reading Tagalog, there's no special tones really with it. It's just you kind of read it as you go, as you would with English almost.
And the president doesn't get along with Trump, right?
Yeah. I've been hearing from family they're not even so fond of him either.
Really?
He had made a comment about women, about pregnant women, because Filipinos, when a lot of people think about Filipinos, they think of the women because we're always in pageants and we always rank really high. Because they're just like, oh, they're so pretty, you know, and this and that. And pageants are very big in the Philippines, so it's very much like their pride. Like everyone has their sport. For us, it's pageants, you know. Yeah. And I'm just like, you know, like the average Filipino is not that tall, right? But like I'm like they're usually my height. It's like I'm pretty short.
And I would have to agree. I had the pleasure. My parents lived in Manila for 3 years. They were actually there during the coup in 2005.
Oh,
that was the scariest time for me. That weekend was really, really, really hard for me. But I was amazed at, you know, the food, the people, the culture, how dark a lot of them were in colors. And you may not want to speak on it, but one of the things that I noticed in the Philippines too, certain things that are prevalent in the United States is kind of world round. So I noticed that the majority of the restaurants that I went to, or even the model billboards, and this is back in 2005, were all the Filipinos who were lighter complected and really tall.
Yes.
And so, you know, in walking around and shopping, I noticed that a lot of the products had like bleaching products. Reminded me of like Jamaica. And I said, I'm all the way in a different part of the world, and it still comes back to the same things. Yeah. You know, in terms of colorization.
I think it would have been a little different had we not been colonized by like Spanish and the US and stuff. But also like Filipinos, like we also deal with a lot of hyperpigmentation issues. So like if you get acne or whatever, it leaves a good amount of scarring, you know, on you. Because I know I went through it. So the only way for me to even out my skin tone was to use these bleaching products. But also because we were colonized, a lot of them are, especially the ones that you might see on billboards, and why they're so tall. Yes, because they're mixed with someone European or American or whatever. Because I'm like, no normal Asian Filipino is like gonna look that tall and like long legs, like, you know.
And one of the things that has changed since then, I flew on Singapore Airlines. And Singapore Airlines at that time had a certain requirement for people who worked for the airline.
Yes.
You had to be at least 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
You had to be attractive. I saw the leisure. You had to smell good. You had to have really white teeth. But I noticed some years later they retracted the height and the colorization part. But I will say, because I'm gonna go back and look at my pictures, some of the most beautiful people worked for Singapore Airlines.
Yeah.
And when people are traveling, I'm gonna tell you, before I started traveling internationally with my family, I was American Airlines, Delta. But to really get the feeling of anywhere, you have to try to travel the local airlines so that you can experience the culture. And in Delta, you're still eating maybe a cheeseburger. You go to Jamaica, you fly a Jamaican Airlines, so you can have rice and peas. I went to Nigeria, and when I went from Nigeria to Abuja, I was so amazed at the beautiful Black sisters and brothers that work there. I know we're coming to the end of the show, but for those of you who are viewing, I spoke about us being live. Well, one of the things about this restaurant that makes it so grand is that we're actually sitting at the mouth of the Manhattan Bridge as it opens up into Brooklyn, and the front of this large space is all glass. So what you're seeing is the sun setting on our set. Yeah. So, I had this lovely heavenly sense glow for the last couple of minutes, and there's kind of a shadow on that side. We're not being unfair to our chef or to Bub.
Also, I won't be able to see anything if I move over that way.
Right.
I'm not being blinded. It's all good. I can still see you.
And that's what I wanted to speak about. It's literally the sun coming into the front of the restaurant. So you're going to see the lighting change. And as we start to wrap up, is there anything that you want to make sure that you let our public know? Because this part is kind of about you.
I would say, just in general, I know a lot of people are struggling a lot, especially in the food and beverage industry, and I experienced this quite a bit coming up in the industry, and I want to tell you guys this is okay. It's okay to do more than one thing. It is okay to be skilled in multiple industries and in multiple areas, and to be able to have more than one source of income nowadays, because it is essential in life, I think, to be able to learn many things, and also to survive, nowadays, really. So please, if you want to learn anything, do it. Do it now. Don't hold back. It will only help you in life.
Absolutely.
And I know it's definitely helped me, because compared to a lot of people I know in the business right now that are struggling or can't find jobs in other places because they've only ever done one thing, I am fortunate enough to still have my finances flowing, because I'm able to, and I'm so versatile,
right?
And I have multiple skill sets. So please learn. Every industry is evolving right now. No one expected to go through a crazy pandemic like this. Yeah. So as much as you could take the time, if you're at home or unemployed, to learn now, please do it. It'll only benefit you in the future.
Absolutely. And I think my favorite word that has come out of this whole pandemic is pivot. Everybody is pivoting their skill set, their small business, their brand, and the learning. And I don't know if you saw recently, Governor Cuomo said that restaurants may have to close again. He just said that, I think it was yesterday. And, we had a whole nother show where we talked about whether or not we think we're going to be inside for the winter or the fall.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm going to say to people, please support your small businesses, not just the restaurants, but your mom and pop shops that sell your local goods, sell clothing, because I have seen a lot of those places disappear. And as we move toward the winter, you need to start thinking about now how you're going to support your favorite restaurants. Because one of my favorite restaurants, it's downtown Brooklyn on Fifth Avenue, it closed the second month of the pandemic, along with multiple locations in the city. So I think we've had a really, really enjoyable show. Bub, is there anything that you want to leave us with?
No, I'm deferring to the women today.
Awesome. That's speaking more into that equality. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to episode 3 with Chef Mala. We had a wonderful, wonderful time and look forward to us coming on next Thursday with episode 4 with another exciting guest.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Are you done?